Welcome to the Virginians for Sports podcast. If you are watching us right now, thank you. You found us on our YouTube channel. By the way, please don't be afraid to hit subscribe. I did it the other day. It didn't cost me a dime. So please hit subscribe. It helps us get bigger and better as we go through this. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on X. And you can find us on TikTok, believe it or not, at VIFS for Sports. But we need you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you do that, we can get bigger and better guests like we have tonight.
So tonight we've got Chris Gaskell. I have to say that, Chris, you and I connected through Stu Brown. And, of course, Kevin connected me to Stu initially. So I imagine we'll talk about Stu a little bit tonight. I will say this. I can count on one hand the number of people that have been really, really helpful helping us get people on this podcast. Stu, Carrie Cobb Harrison, and you, Chris Gaskell. So thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'll just quickly say football stud out of the Hampton area, played offensive line at Wake Forest University, and is an all-around really good guy, and has a daughter entering her senior year playing softball, and she's committing to Florida State, which I think is a top 3 or 4 softball program in the country. And you travel quite a bit too, Chris. Let's start there. How much traveling you got going on this summer?
Just got back from 13 days in Denver. Yeah, we're out there for 2 years. What's that?
Is that work or daughter?
No, that was softball. We had 2 tournaments we played in out there. So we go and then we have like 2 or 3 days down in between tournaments. So we just stay. There's no sense in flying all the way back and then turn around 3 days later and going back out there. So we just stay out there and make the best of it. So this year's a little different for us. It's kind of weird. She's on the 18U Premier team for the Birmingham Thunderbolts, and when you make it to that team, they're sponsored by New Balance. They're sponsored by Easton and Rawlings. They get helmets, bats, gloves, uniforms, shoes, turf shoes, cleats. They even put pitching toes on the pitcher's cleats. And then they pay for their hotel and their airfare, which is nice. But the only problem with that as a dad is I never see her because she's always with the team. So, but it's cool. It gives her a little taste of what she's going to experience when she goes to college.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, right? It sounds like sponsorship deals for high school kids, even though they're not playing for their high schools as part of those deals. It's wild to see the money trickle down that far.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of them are actually getting NIL deals already. So, you know.
I don't even want to ask any more questions about high school NIL.
No, it's a lot of fun. So she went – talking about her for a little bit. They were her team, high school team, mid-low team. We went to the state semifinals. So we missed the first tournament. Actually, we missed the first 2 tournaments. That the Thunderbolts host a tournament at their facility in Birmingham, which is unbelievable facility. It's 2 turf fields back to back, with indoor cage, a concession stand. It's all turf. It's got the Birmingham Thunderbolts logo on it. It's first class. And then Newberry, Florida. We missed Newberry, Florida. So this past weekend or last 2 weekends have been the first ones that she's been able to make. So get home last night, turn around and leave Thursday morning for Atlanta, come home Sunday, and turn around and leave Friday for California for 9 days.
I'm just going to say it's a good thing you've been a long-serving federal employee. You have
no doubt. I've got plenty of leave that I could take. People ask me all the time, like, how do you take so much time off? I said, I've been with the government 23 years. I carry over a lot of hours and I earn a lot of hours.
That is crazy, but awesome at the same time. So I'm going to stay on that before we get into your life and your sports and everything that you've done, because I can't wait to ask you questions about that. Tell us a little bit about Marley and your world right now for a year. Let's just say for the calendar year, because K-Dub, myself, PZ, we've all had kids play sports. K-Dub and I both have kids playing sports right now. Actually, so does Paul. Do you get a break? Is it every single month? Does she get a break? Do you? Because if she gets a break, I guess you get a break, right? So is there a break? I guess is the question.
Well, when you talk about working out and staying on her craft as a pitcher, we usually give her a month off. For example, the fall season will start. And that's the good thing when you get to the older teams, like the teams are all about recruiting, right? That's what the job is, to get kids into college. Well, colleges can only recruit during certain time periods. So back in the day when we started playing softball tournaments in March, when it was snowing out here in Powhatan, sometimes when we were playing softball, you don't do that because college coaches can't go to games. This is specific to softball until the College World Series is over. Division I coaches can't go to recruit at all off campus until the College World Series is over. So, for example, that Florida trip that I was talking about that we missed last year when we were down there for that, because we got bounced in the quarterfinals, we were able to fly down. Friday, there were no coaches. Actually, Florida State lost to Oklahoma in that second game, and it ended it. Next day, flooded with coaches. They were all there just waiting to be able to go out and do it. So, that's a long-winded answer, but there is some downtime. But when you're on these teams, the travel is it's a lot, but it's constricted. So like we left here on June 26th, and then we'll be done with our summer softball July 28th. So it's crammed into about a month's time frame.
That's not bad. Fun though, I'm sure.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
So Chris, that leads us into asking more about the early commit process that Marley did. I mean, does that take some pressure off of her going into her senior year? Does the schedule for tournaments still stay at the same rate, being that she committed so early? And what was that process like to be able to commit that early? And, what's the pros and cons of that?
Well, I really like it. I don't see any cons. I think Junior, she figured she was been a Florida State fan since she was a kid, and we're thankful and blessed that she was able to get an offer from them and go play there. But I think it's more pro than it is con, because these kids, especially girls, they put so much. Boys put pressure on themselves too, but boys, we're all egomaniacs. It's girls really want to perform and they want to make everybody happy and they want everything to go down. So as long as that goes on, you can feel the stress. One of the things that I think I talked to Paul about this, I stressed to her during the recruiting process, is you just do what you've been doing to get people to look at you. You don't have to do anything different. You don't have to change anything. Just continue to work, continue to get better, and continue to do what you're doing. So September 1 was crazy. Her story, and I think she could tell at some point in time. I think she did it with Paul, midnight phone calls, emails, text message, FaceTimes. I mean, she went till almost 2:00 in the morning and then finally went to bed. And thankfully we didn't have school the next day. She woke up and went again. And it's kind of comical to see these girls on the phone instead of texting, like they're actually having to talk to people. And she did a really good job. We let her go. She wanted to do it in the basement. I trusted her. We let her go down there. She did everything on her own, but we could every now and then we'd hear something out of it, and she handled her own really well. Super proud of her for that. So that process being done now, you can actually see, like me and some of the other dads talk about it. Like you can just see the girls even though they didn't show a lot of stress, you can see that they're so much lighter than they were before they committed.
Yeah, I mean, you have a pretty good understanding of what it's like to be recruited and go through that process and the pressure associated with it. So let's talk about football. I know you were a 4-year starter for Bethel, who I think historically, before you went into high school, was a pretty good football program, right? Or do I have that?
Yeah, we were really good. Yeah, we had a lot of talent. Yeah.
And to start as a freshman, I mean, that's kind of wild, right? And look, I'll throw this out there, and you can correct me, but it's a predominantly black school, right? And the football team is predominantly black. And so a white kid being a minority, which is not typical, starting for 4 years, I imagine that was seemed outlandish to a lot of people that knew your story.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing about Kaz and his coaching staff and the culture that he had developed there is he was going to play the best people. And that to me, that's the epitome of sports. You don't play somebody because they're a dad. You don't play their dad's the coach. You don't play somebody because their dad's, whatever the connection is. You play because they're the best people. You put the best 11 on the field for football. So I was able to earn a spot. And the crazy thing about it was I had no idea I was going to be on varsity my freshman year. And if you think about a locker room, all the way in the back of the locker room was the utility closet where all the uniforms and practice jerseys and everything were kept. And we all go back there. And I've never really talked to Kaz at all. I played JV in the 8th grade, never talked to him. And I walked back there and he goes, "Gaskell?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Are you ready?" I said, "Sir." and he threw me a varsity jersey. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go, you know? So I actually was able to beat out a senior offensive tackle who was actually a co-captain on the team. I beat him out. So I was fortunate enough to be able to. I started every game but one as a freshman, and the only reason why I didn't start that one game is because it was senior day, and he let him run the first series, and then I came in the rest of the game.
And Chris, not to get into the finer points of talent, but were you his size or bigger at the time?
As a he was a little bit bigger than me. I was a little more athletic, I think. I think that was the biggest thing. I had size and I had a little more athleticism. My freshman year, I was 6'2", 225, 230.
Wow.
Coming in. So, it was his eye opener. The first scrimmage we had was out in Pulaski County. And I get the biggest guy I've ever seen in my entire life line up across from me. And I did pretty well. I mean, to the point where one of the coaches after the game said, "You're going to be good." I said, "I appreciate that. Thank you."
Yeah. By the way,
Wow.
6'2", 225, that's Kevin's and K-Dub's current combined weight.
Pretty close. Pretty close. So that's straight out of a movie, Chris. Hey, Gaskell, you ready? And he threw you the jersey. I mean, that's got to be a moment as you just remember crisply. So, Bethel, tell me because I don't want to ruin it if somebody else has this question, but I know you had a pretty famous quarterback played there. Tell me what was your highlight of the 4 years playing for Bethel?
Well, I'll tell you, my freshman and sophomore year, we had a ton of talent. We ran the wishbone back in the day, and
Nice.
Our quarterback and the three backs all ran sub 4.5s. I mean, they were fast. The problem is that they all wanted to be the hero, and so you know how that goes. And when it comes to team dynamics, that kind of throws things off. I think my biggest memories are from my junior and senior year. We went 10-0 my junior year. We shut out our first 5 opponents. Like nobody scored on us until the 6th game. And then we go in the first round of the playoffs and we play IC Norcom, and they blocked 2 punts, run them back for touchdowns. We ended up losing the first round of the playoffs, so we went 10-1 and our season was over. And then my senior year was, I mean, it's like a dream. I remember to this day. And I told Marley when her team was playing for the state championship or state tournament, I said, it's a memory you'll never forget. I mean, you remember almost everything, So we went through the season. We were 8-2. We beat Hampton my junior and senior year. Matter of fact, Hampton, who was nationally ranked every year, we beat them on 9-3 on a Friday night. And if you know, Darling Stadium in Hampton, Virginia is where all the Hampton teams play. Like we only had one field for all the Hampton schools. So you could go there one game and be the visitor, and you can go there another game and be the home person. And then obviously if the Newport News people from Peninsula District came in and you hosted, obviously you were home. But we packed that entire stadium. You couldn't see it. There's video out there still. You couldn't see the stands, the walkways at all. It was completely packed with people. And it was probably 10 rows deep around the track. And it was an awesome game. We ended up beating them, and I think it got a little rough outside of the game. So the next year when we were going back against them again, it was always the last game of the season. They moved it to a daytime game. But the rivalry between us and Hampton was really, really good. I mean, like it was one of those things where like if they beat us, we'd go back to the locker room and somebody dumped a bushel of crabs because they were Hampton crabbers. They dump a bushel of crabs right in front of our locker room. So it was some funny stuff, some cool stuff, but those nighttime games can get crazy.
So are you telling me that there was a 9-3 game? And correct me if I'm wrong. Was Ronald Curry the quarterback at Hampton at the time?
No, I don't believe he was.
Yeah.
I don't. No,
No.
He was a few years after.
Who was your quarterback?
Junior year I think it was Iverson. I think
Right.
Paul London. If you guys know Paul London, London took over quarterback my sophomore year, and I believe Iverson was the quarterback my junior and senior year.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Kind of crazy when he became quarterback. We went from a wishbone to a pro set.
So, Chris, as an old lineman, I mean, you already told us a cool story about how you got the gig. I mean, obviously you worked hard for it, but is there that pancake that you got on somebody that you'll never forget that just sticks out to you? Whether it's at high school or the college level?
Yeah, there was one in college. I forget who we were. I think it was North. Were we playing Northwestern? I forget who it was. I remember it to this day, though. We're running a zone, and Paul and I talked about. I love the zone. I love zone blocking, especially as an offensive lineman. And we were running the zone, and my mentor when I got to Wake was a guy named Elton Indoma Ogar, and we called him E. Obviously, it was easier to say. He showed me a trick, like as you're going and you're reaching somebody, and you've got them on skates to the right. If you punch with your left and pull with your right, you'll flip them and just bang, land around on the ground. So I did that. I think it was Northwestern. Yeah, and I think that was the year that they went to the Rose Bowl that year that we beat them.
Wow.
They get all their O linemen from Pulaski.
Yeah,
Sure.
they're some big boys. They are. They are some
Those
big
Big Ten
boys.
O linemen are huge.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Don Joy makes a lot of money off those guys too. The knee brace guys.
Oh, man. All right, before we leave high school, when you and I last chatted, Chris, you reminded me that Bethel won the state championship. I think it was in '92.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, AI was your quarterback your junior, senior years. This was your senior year, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Tell me what happened, I don't know, 30 minutes prior to the game before kickoff.
All right. So, we were living high. We just came back and we were down. Actually, going a week prior to that, we talked about Huguenot. We were down 16-0 with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and ended up coming back and beating them to go to the state finals. So we go out to EC Glass, and we have a coaching staff. It was Kaz, a couple other, like the baseball coach and the softball coach, and then we had the Incremenius family. And Daddy Inco, we called him Inco. Daddy Inco was the head of both offensive and defensive line, and the two Inco sons were offensive and defensive line. One of them played D-line in college, the other one played O-line in college, I think at East Carolina. We go out there on the field to warm up against EC Glass, and their entire student body is standing on the sidelines. And they were saying some stuff that shouldn't have been said. Making some pretty derogatory remarks toward a majority of our team, and saying some nasty stuff. And we go back in the locker room before the game. You warm up and you go back in the locker room. And I think I told Paul, it was the most intense locker room, college, high school, whatever you want to say. That right there was the most intense locker room that I've ever been a part of. I mean, you had one of the Inco brothers was probably about 400 pounds. I mean, huge. So he was like 6'6", 400 pounds. And he's ranting and raving and crying like he's that pumped up. Like it wasn't tears of anything other than anger and frustration. And we went out there and just blew their doors off. I mean, we ended up beating them 27-0. They crossed the 50-yard line one time, and that was on the opening kickoff of the second half. They got to, I think, the 48 or 45-yard line and then never moved the ball again after that. We just absolutely demolished them.
That student body had no idea what they were doing.
They poked the wrong barrel that day, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
No, well, and that result is what it should have happened. So congratulations on that and the state championship. That's amazing. So, Chris, tell us about how did you end up in Wake Forest? Coming out of Bethel, obviously I don't know tell us who recruited you and how you decided to choose Wake Forest.
Well, I tell people this all the time. During the recruiting process, you get on people's mailing list. Like Kaz was fantastic at getting us recruited. That guy spent more time in the office, VHS tapes, dubbing tapes, mailing them off. I mean, he put it out there. So I got a lot of letters from a lot of schools, to the point where my mom, I think, has them in trash bags somewhere in a garage or something like that, just kind of holding on to them. So you kind of feel cool about that. But I tell people all the time, like, you don't really know until you start getting handwritten letters or until they can actually start talking to you about what's going on. My experience was so much different. Like, you don't get recruited until your senior year back then. And so I went through the whole football season, and then we ended up going to the state championship game. which ended the second week in December. Well, if you know football recruiting, the biggest weekends of recruiting are the first 2 weekends of December and the last 2 weekends of January. Because once the school student body is out, why do people want to bring people to school when you can't really see how the school is operating? So I was kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit with that because of the season. And I originally wanted to go into law school. So I started looking at schools that had, law schools, and growing up in Hampton, Navy was a big draw there because, the shipyard, everybody works at the shipyard. It's the number one civilian contractor to the U.S. Navy. So that was a school that stayed on my radar. But then when I was actually getting recruited by Coach Caldwell, Jim Caldwell was my head coach at Wake. He was the quarterbacks coach up at Penn State, and he was recruiting me for Penn State. I remember seeing him in the hallways at school, all decked out in his Penn State stuff. And it's great. They watch you walk down the hallways, at least he did. And he called me when I was looking, and he goes, "Hey, I got the job at Wake. Do you want to go there?" And I knew Wake Law School was really, really good. So I'm like, "Hey, sign me up for a visit. Let's go." So that's how. So I crammed 3 visits into a very short time frame. I went to Wake first, William and Mary during the middle of the week. The signing day is like the 4th or 5th of February, I forget. So I had to cram it all in. So I went Wake one weekend, William and Mary in the middle because I was law school local, and then I went to Navy. Those are the only visits that I went on, just because of the time crunch. Now, I will tell you, I told a lot of people I didn't want to play offensive line. I wanted to play. Well, not in high school, I was a tight end. I was a 260-pound tight end. So I played tight end D-line. So I wanted to do that in college. And I think when I told a couple of those schools that I don't know if I want to play O-line, I want to play D-line, I think they kind of backed off a little bit. So, and then I go play one redshirt season as a D lineman, and guess what? Here you go. You're going the offensive line. I tell people all the time, like the difference between offensive line, at least what I remember in high school, in college, it's so much more. And maybe it's different now because the kids are stronger and a little more athletic. It was so much different than high school offensive line. Like you tried to destroy the guy in front of you. You did that in high school, but you had a lot of responsibilities that you thought you had. And then college, they're just like, you know where you're supposed to go. When you get there, rip the guy's head off. So it was pretty fun. It was kind of like, I tell people it's D-line, but knowing where the ball was going.
Nice.
So we got to hear it, Chris. I mean, the people want to know your coolest AI story. Then, I mean, I'm sure you got a really good one. And
I got 2.
All right, let's go.
I got 2, and they're quick. He might. Well, he and I had a thing before practice and before games. We would stand 10 yards apart, and you had to keep your feet planted the whole time. And we would throw the football at each other as hard as we could. And you went until the loser was the first guy to drop the ball. And I think I'll give him that, but then I beat him one-on-one in basketball.
Oh, there you go.
But here's the caveat: it was make it, take it, and all I did was just backing down. keep the ball.
Still,
you can't wait if you can't get the ball, bud.
That's it. You gotta play make it, take it against somebody like that. You'll never see the ball again.
Well, and you have to have some skill, even if you're bigger and backing him down. You have to have some skill to put the ball in the hole too. I didn't really start offensively showing my basketball skills until college intramurals. We used to play intramurals. We get a bunch of football guys together and go play intramurals. And man, I used to fire 3-pointers. We actually did it in conditioning a couple of times. We had a game where you couldn't shoot, you couldn't score until everybody was across the half court line, and you just kept running and running and running. And me and another guy, Billy Hollows, who was a kicker, we just used to dominate. Yeah, what I'll say about football players trying to play basketball, having not played a lot of it growing up, is they're either bulls in a china shop or they're amazingly good at the sport of basketball.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned Northwestern,
and we'll
Chris.
dunk on you.
Right. Yes, they will, as some of us know. You mentioned Northwestern earlier. What was the ACC back when you played? Florida State had come in, Miami had come in, but it was mostly the original 8 plus, what, 2, 3, 4 edition.
No, Miami wasn't there yet.
Oh, really?
No, Miami wasn't there yet. So back then, the powerhouse football teams was obviously Florida State. They were almost number one I think they were number one every year. Carolina under Mac Brown was really, really good before he left to go to Texas. And then I think defensive line wise, UVA was probably one of the toughest defensive lines that we played against. I think the guy's name was Kennedy, or I forget his name, big, tall guy. I remember being a pulling guard and pulling around and running into him, and I felt like I ran into a brick wall. I was 285 pounds, and I had a full head of steam and hit him, and boy, I got the block, but I didn't move him very far.
Well, so when you're playing out of Conference Northwestern, and I imagine other teams that have, I'll call them really strong academic reputations, but then when you're playing in conference, you're playing Florida State, or you're playing teams that have traditionally been good for at least years, if not decades. It's got to be a weird transition playing those kinds of teams out of conference and then coming back in conference.
Yeah, it definitely was. And, back then the ACC was pretty decent. And I tell people all the time, we didn't win very many games when I was at Wake. So that was a tough deal. I went from winning 22 of my last 23 games in high school to winning one the first year as a redshirt. And then I think the most we ever won was my senior year. We went 5-6, but we lost 3 games that we actually had in the bag, and it just couldn't finish it. So, but playing those teams, Wake had good talent, first team, but like Florida State's first team was probably better than us. Their second team, probably better than us. And their third team, probably better than us. It was, they just kept coming. I mean, you'd be in there playing the whole game, and you think a defensive lineman is starting to wear down, and nope, here comes another guy. Here comes another guy. Here comes another guy. And it was just a revolving door. So that was tough to play against, but fun. I loved it.
It's funny you said that, because that was going to be my next question about it. How did it feel to go from dominating pretty much in high school to being not so dominating in college? But you just answered that. But tell me this: what was it like game day at Wake Forest? Because I know you're at Tobacco Road, and you mentioned North Carolina. NC State has always had a pretty decent, if not very good, football team. Duke, not so much. But what was it like on game day in Greensboro? Was it crazy? Did I say Greensboro?
You did say Greensboro.
Winston-Salem, my fault. What was it like on game day, Chris?
I mean, it was going. We used to like to play on the road. I mean, we had good fans at Wake, but we didn't have a lot of fans. So you go to like a Carolina game or NC State game, or Clemson was unbelievable to play at. Those places are packed. So it's a lot of fun to go there, and you get up in the hotel, you eat, you constantly eat, I feel like, and then you get dressed and you take the bus and you get a police escort in and out of the stadium, and just go do those things. It's a really sobering experience when you think about it, like going into those stadiums and just look around and be like, man, I accomplished something that not a lot of people get to do. It's kind of a cool experience to go through.
So, K-Dub, let me jump. I'm going to just add on one thing real quick. Did you go, because you were there, I mean, I hate to say this, but Duke basketball has always been big since like 85, 86. Did you ever get a chance to go to see Krzyzewski and Duke play at Winston-Salem or at Duke?
Winston. Yeah, at Wake I saw. Remember, I came into Wake Forest fall of 1993. And if you know the name Tim Duncan, he came in the same year that I did. So he and I came in together. We graduated together. But you had Tony Rutland, who was a Bethel grad.
Yep.
Actually, Tony and Alan are both being inducted into the Bethel, the first ever class of Hall of Fame for Bethel Athletics in the latter part of August. But Tony was there. You had Randolph Childress, Scooter Banks, Rusty LaRue, who is a whole different story. But you had a bunch of guys that were there that really good basketball. I think we went
Randolph
to
Childress.
Randolph Childress, yeah. Randolph
to a
and I were
basketball camp and met at Wake Forest when I was in high school then. So I was trying to go to camps to get recruited. So I met Duncan and Randolph Childress down there at Wake. You were down
both
there
really,
somewhere. We were on the same
both
campus.
really great guys too. Really great guys. I mean, everything you hear about Tim Duncan is accurate. The guy's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. I remember my roommate and I were somewhere, and he was in the middle of us, and we were probably talking to people I felt like 8 feet away, but I'm exaggerating. He reached out and grabbed both of us and pulled us into him and started talking. We're all good friends because athletes at an academic school, at most schools, the athletes stick together, but I think at academic schools, the athletes really kind of bond together because they're in the same fight, with the hard class load and doing the daily workouts and doing the practice, doing the film work, doing the mandatory study halls, that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. Chris, do you remember you said there weren't a lot of fans there, but do you remember the first game that you were on ESPN? And do you know that you were part of the first game
no, I don't.
Deacons? It was the first nationally televised game in '97. You were a part of that. If you started that game against NC State,
I think we kicked a field goal with like 41 seconds left. Was that a Thursday night game?
I believe so. It says it's September 25th. So yeah.
We kicked the field. I snapped for field goals, and that was back in the day. And I think it's still there. You had the 1 second rule, right, where nobody can hit the snapper for 1 second, and they had been hitting me the whole game. And we were getting ready to kick a long field goal with like 40 something seconds left. And the dude, I mean, you really are a wide open target. There's nothing you can do about it. And the dude smoked me, and they finally threw the flag on him. So we got to move 15 yards closer and kick an easier field goal for the win.
Nice.
Super genius. That guy was.
Uh-huh.
We're going to find a clip of that. That's sweet.
All right. So we brought up Tim Duncan and Allen Iverson in this conversation. Who are you closer to, Chris? I know I'm asking.
Yeah, fully honest, I haven't talked to either one of them in a long time.
Yeah.
I think if I bumped into either one of them, it would be like, long lost friends kind of seeing each other again. At least I would hope it would be that way. Probably was a little closer with Tim because I hung out with Tim outside of sports more. So maybe a little bit closer with him. And the whole story is sad. When Allen, we called him Bubba Chuck, was in prison, I actually went and visited him while he was in prison. So,
yeah,
that's the thing about him. I didn't think I think he's listed as 6'4" or whatever, but I met him in like a hotel like 2 times within like 3 weeks. He was in a hotel. I didn't realize how big he was. I didn't realize he was 6'4", 200, and right at 200 pounds. He's a big dude.
You talking about Duncan?
Iverson. Well, I know.
No, Iverson was maybe 6'1". That's why you didn't think it was right. He's maybe 6'1". And I don't know if he ever crested 200 pounds, at least not in high school. He was skinny as a rail in high school. His ankles were about the size of my wrist.
80.
Yeah.
You met Fred Iverson, Kenny. That's Iverson's brother, Fred.
Ivor Dad. I think I met Ivor Dad.
Well, you mentioned his ankles being the size of your wrist. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think you would surmise, Chris, why he didn't play football instead of basketball at the professional level.
Yeah, he always said that he loved football, but he obviously knew basketball was gonna be his thing. So he's tough. I mean, if you watched him play basketball in the pros, he got beat up. I mean, he didn't care about his body. He did the same thing on the football field. I mean, he would lay into anything. He would do anything he had to do. Just phenomenal. I mean, I don't have to say it. The guy's a Hall of Famer. He's just a phenomenal athlete.
Cool. Kevin, you got another question?
Yeah. So we're going on that road. So who would you say is the best defensive player that you got to go against in college?
Peter Boulware. I think
All
Peter
right.
Boulware from Florida State was probably one of the best. I say that because he was destroying. So they ran an even front, and I played center. So, which means on pass protection, I was uncovered. So depending on which way the pass protection was going, I would go and just look for somebody that I could hit. and or that can help block. And he'd been killing our offensive tackle with speed rushes, like just off the edge, like just so quick. Well, once he started setting a little more. He started to spin move back inside. And I remember playing his day. He spun back inside one time, and he was about halfway through his spin, and I could see his back. And I put my helmet and my face mask right into his rib cage as hard as I could. He did not like it at all, and nor should he have liked it. But it is what it is. That's all legal in the trenches, you know.
Yeah, just
But that guy's he was the absolute freak. It's hard to answer that question because, like I said earlier, like Carolina's D line was ridiculous. Virginia's D line was ridiculous. Clemson's D line was ridiculous. I mean, they were all really, really good people. I just remember him because I got to hit him a couple of times where I had an advantage.
So if he saw you, you probably wouldn't be hugging like old buddies. So it's all
he probably doesn't even remember it. That guy went on to have an NFL career. He's got a lot more memories than what I have. So
I don't know. Some of those hits you can remember.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
All right, KW, you got anything else in the chamber?
Hey, you said Marley got a lot of stuff from New Balance, all of that stuff. So I know she's hooking you up, but this is just to ensure that she does going forward. But what is the coolest swag or hookup you've gotten from Marley softball?
I don't think I've gotten anything, but I did.
Marley, come on.
From Marley.
The problem with that is that Marley and I wear two different sizes. I'm an adult double XL, and she's probably a medium or a large type thing. So, I mean, I could try to put on one of her really cool shirts, but it wouldn't look the same.
No, we're just saying, hey, Marley, from now on, just go. Can I get one for my dad? Can I get my dad's size? Can I get that in my dad's size? That's all we're trying
I would
to do.
tell you, as a parent, to watch your kid be able to reap the benefits of all the hard work they've done to be able to start getting the free stuff and getting paid for and stuff like that. It's been truly a blessing in that regard, because, you know, as we're all parents, as parents, you want your kids to be successful. You want them to have all the things that they work for, and to see it actually come to fruition is pretty cool.
That's really cool. All right, Chris, we're going to end on KW. Did you have another one? You came off mute.
No, I was just going to say kudos to you as a parent for, instilling that in her and raising an awesome person and athlete. So well done.
Yeah, I got two of them. My oldest daughter she's big into the fitness world, where, you know, she actually has a coach, and she's meal preps, and she is strict on her diet and works really, really hard. And to be a college, she'll be a junior at App State next year. And to have that kind of lifestyle and go to college, especially in a town like Boone, is pretty difficult. So it's remarkable, her dedication to her sport.
Well, say more about that sport, Chris, because you and I have never talked about this. How do they compete?
Well, I think when COVID hit, so for a number of years, I had a lot of iron in my garage. I had, Olympic barbells. I had 610 pounds of iron, 280 pounds of bumper plates, box jumps, kettlebells, all that stuff. I still use the box jumps. I still use the kettlebells. But COVID hit, and I'm like, let's clean out the garage. I'm like, we're not using this stuff. So I sold all my iron and my plates. I kept a couple of things, but sold all of it, because, people were all working out from home. So everybody was looking for gym equipment. And as soon as I sell it, she comes and says, Dad, I want to get into powerlifting. Like, I just got rid of everything. So I had to turn around and go find something for her to start lifting and working out. And she loves it. I mean, she works her butt off for it. So is
it CrossFit, or is it?
No, she's in, it's not bodybuilding, but like her coach does have those people. She goes more on the wellness side, which is still the workout, lifting and stuff like that. Kind of, I don't know if that's what Carrie does or not, or if she's in the wellness or if she's in the bodybuilding part of it, but it's very similar.
Okay.
She wants to compete at some time.
All right, Chris, obviously football and softball are different sports, but team youth athletics have a lot of similarities in them, despite the rules of the game. One thing that you loved about growing up playing sports that doesn't happen today, and we should be bringing it back.
I would say
Your dog has an answer for us.
There ain't enough dogs in the sports. That's
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah. I don't know. I think back in the day, we didn't have as much parental influence, especially in high school sports. So back in those days, we didn't have a lot of that stuff, and most of the coaches back then wouldn't tolerate it. And I think that's been a travesty. And I believe in today's youth sports, high school and travel, is that there's still. Now, look, I was a parent that I coached, but I'll tell you right now, I was harder on my daughter, both my daughters, when I coached them than I was probably anybody else on the team. So to me, I think that's one of the things I wish we could bring back is cut out the parental influence. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. And I actually, that's my answer too. I am still staggered by the number of, or the percentage of parents that are actually assistant or head coaches at the varsity high school level.
Yeah. And that was the thing when Marley decided, I had a team up through 14U, and then she got an opportunity to guest play with the team she ended up getting picked up by in California. And I knew, I was like, you need to she was ready. I was ready. Go be coached by somebody else.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Chris, thanks for joining us tonight, man. I think K-Dub and Flip learned a lot about you, laughed some, and we're intrigued by a lot of it. And as always, thanks for being super supportive of what we're doing.
Yeah, you got it. Hey, if y'all get a chance, I think I mentioned this to you, Paul, but since we all know Stu Brown, you got to ask Stu Brown to talk about our high school performance in the student faculty games of both basketball and football. Let's just say we put on a show. Me and Stu Brown did.
You backing them down and Stu hitting threes?
I think we were both hitting threes, and he was a quarterback. I was a receiver. I mean, it was a show. I can tell you that right now.
Hold on, Chris. Does Stu have any nicknames from back then?
No, I don't remember any nicknames for Stu. No.
All right.
No, I'm sorry. I wish I had some good ones. I wish I could.
He's a walking nickname. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Stu's a walking nickname. That dude's
awesome. Talk about a great guy, though. I really like the fact that you guys have him going, because he's so passionate about what he does. He loves the kids that he coaches. He loves the sport. Anything he puts his mind to, he's going to do it. I think he's helping coaching his wife's daughter's softball team. So when he gets into something, he goes full board. So kudos to him for that, and kudos to you guys for noticing that and bringing him on.
Yeah, no, Stu's been great. Awesome. Well, Chris, appreciate it, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.